Hello, Kirk Noggle, Direct Response Associates in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Headquarters to Dun & Bradstreet's data gathering operations, now for almost 40 years. We have well over 100 years of experience in this office, and we think we know more about mailing lists than any other company in the world, mailing list buyer or mailing list seller. And this is a short video on why most mailing lists are so inaccurate. First, we think 9 out of 10, if not 99 out of 100 mailing lists could have been purchased better. Number one, could have been purchased from a more appropriate source, a better source. There's a handful of major compilers out there and hundreds of smaller list compilers out there. We only work with the very, very top, and the differences from one to another is staggering. We completely dismiss the rest of this industry. Completely dismiss, won't touch it. We see mailing lists delivering over 95%, and we see other mailing lists delivering less than 80%. That is a huge difference. That's number one, the source you use. Number two, current month data. You buy from a website, you buy from a list reseller. Very often they're using data that's refreshed by the compiler only once every 6 months, because it's cheaper that way. They use postal updates monthly to say they updated it. But postal processes do almost nothing. You need current month data. The differences are staggering. Number three, the selects you use. Some business files advertise 28,000 variables. Some consumer files, 3,500 variables. 4 ways to pick income, 4 ways to pick net worth, multiple ways to pick number of employees, sales volumes on branches, household member targeting selection. There's all sorts of variables out there. You can buy the same list from the same company, and depending on who ran it, you'll get different results. More importantly is that those data elements we're talking about that everybody uses on the business side or the consumer side, they're almost all modeled. They don't exist in the public domain. Sales volume, number of employees, businesses do not report this to Dun & Bradstreet. A few of them do, but very few. Dun & Bradstreet has financial information on 500,000 companies, but they've got 14 million records and 14 million credit reports. Modeled, modeled, modeled. On the consumer side, you don't tell your income, child ages, age, very often home ownership has to be modeled, net worth, all of this stuff is modeled. There's so few sources feeding these databases, almost all this stuff has to be modeled. A little bit of self-reported information, a little bit of transactional data, courthouse data, which is mortgages, UCC filings, suits, liens, and judgments, bankruptcies, very little beyond that. Phone books, a disaster. Credit report data and census data from 2010 feed these mailing lists, but credit reports at the zip 4 level, part of a neighborhood, not household specific. Census data, census tract and block group, part of a neighborhood, not household specific. Nobody really knows households, your household. And also, it's very difficult to keep this stuff up to date. The post office reported 25% of direct mail is undeliverable as addressed. They don't recognize 1 in 4 addresses, and that was in 2007. It's gotten way worse since then. Beyond that, there are huge skews from one database to another. Dun & Bradstreet says 6% of the businesses in the nation have $1 million in sales. Info USA and Experian say almost 30% of the businesses in the nation have $1 million in sales. That's a huge skew. Epsilon on the consumer side says 22% of the households have $75,000 in income. You've got Info Group out there saying over 40% of the households have $75,000 in income. That's a huge skew. We think they do it deliberately to sell more names. People want to buy wealthier households, and so on. There are 20,000 companies advertising mailing lists. 20,000. If you include ad agencies and printers, there's almost 100,000 companies selling mailing lists. You have to run tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of orders and counts over decades and decades and decades, like we have, to be able to find the anomalies in the file, to be able to find the viable data within the file. We think the very best lists, they're out there, places claiming 95% accuracy, 90% accuracy, triple verified, 20 million phone calls a year. We say baloney, baloney, baloney. The very best lists you can get, 60, 70, perhaps 80% accurate. Again, not only the sources feeding the files are providing erroneous data, but all of that demographic and firmographic data has to be modeled. Now, beyond that, there are 60,000 lists advertised to the list industry. 60,000 lists. This is called nextmark.com. 60,000 lists. It's really thousands of people sitting around their kitchen table making up search engine optimization words describing a list they think you want to buy. Wealthy homeowners that want my product. The fact is that nobody knows where they came from. Nobody checks any of them. Who would check them? How would they check them? You would have to mail every single one of them every single month to try to compare one to another. And why every single month? Because mailing lists change 15 to 20% per month. Not because 15% new businesses, 15% out of businesses, or 15% of the public turns 18 and 15% of the public dies. It's because the sources feeding the files change. Some of these list companies advertise 2,000 sources, others hundreds and hundreds of sources. Those files change tremendously. The same list from the same company a month later might produce tremendously different results. There are just so many inaccuracies in this industry. Again, we dismiss 59,900 out of those 60,000 mailing lists. We dismiss the hundreds and hundreds of list compilers and only work with the very, very top ones. So if you are responsible for buying mailing lists, or if you rely on data for your livelihood, please get a hold of us. No obligation. Take a look at what you're doing, make some suggestions, hopefully. We may be able to save you some money on your list acquisition, but we may not, because we very often go for a more expensive list. And more importantly than anything is we may prevent you from wasting a huge amount of money. Again, Kirk Noggle, Direct Response Associates, beautiful downtown Allentown, Pennsylvania. Thank you very much.